It's time for our weekly segment of Future Shock 2.0 with our great friend, the irrepressible Ira Wolfe, who is a workforce trends expert, a TEDx speaker, and host of the ever-popular Geeks, Geezers and Googleization podcast. And here he picks up on something he spoke about recently on this show on Chat GPT, but he has some updates. He's going to reprise what he's already told us with some new exciting turns, and some will leave you maybe pausing to wonder what's ahead. Here's Ira Wolfe. Ira Wolfe, Chat GPT, so new, but it'll soon become mainstream. We're all catching up with it. What's new in it?
John, thanks. I love this topic. The future seems to have met the present, or as I wrote in my book about Googleization, science fiction meet reality. Dig Life Deep listeners probably have heard about Chat GPT, and they may not know what it is. So we're going to define that and some of how it's affecting us. The reality is sort of like Star Wars just met the Twilight Zone. So let's start with the basics. What is Chat GPT? What GPT stands for is, the technical term is generative pre-trained transformer. That's generative pre-trained transformer. And just as I'm having trouble saying it, it's actually pretty complicated. So I pulled this description off the internet. To put it quite simply, Chat GPT is AI, or artificial intelligence. It's a language machine. It uses statistics, learning, supervised learning to index words, phrases, and sentences, which doesn't really tell us what it is. But in fact, and this is across all lines, I know we hear about intelligence and artificial intelligence. ChatGPT really isn't very intelligent. I mean, it is intelligent, but it has no real intelligence in the sense of who we are. For example, it doesn't know what the word means that it pulls out. It just knows how to use it. So it would be like, I grew up, I could read Hebrew, but I have no idea what you said. I can read French, but I have no idea what the words mean. So part of it is that's where that fits. But it's really, really good at summarizing, answering questions, writing articles, because people may be familiar with IBM Watson, a number of years ago, and they use it in medicine because Watson can read 8,000 journal articles in seconds. Where if you think about a physician trying to keep up with what the latest is, no possible way to do that. But now they can get the digest in that. So think about GPT in that way. But I wondered about how do we explain ChatGPT to a kid? So I asked it, and it gave a pretty good answer. So here's what it said about how I can explain this to my grandchildren. Imagine if you could ask your toys or stuffed animals anything, and they would reply back to you. Chat GPT is a way to have conversations with computers, just like you have with your friends. Imagine asking Chat GPT lots of questions, such as, tell me a story about, or what should we do today? So you might recall, as we were kids, it's like, I'm bored. And you didn't want to say that too often to your parents. Because they'd give you that look and chase you off into the other room and say, find something to do. And you go, well, what am I going to do? Well, now kids can ask GPT to tell me a story, play a game with me. Some of the things that it does are pretty incredible. Now, there's probably a really dark side to that. But when I ran this, it gave some really interesting and good answers. So I put some of these questions in. Why won't anybody play with me? Why am I bored? Tell me a fantasy story. And it created this fantasy story. It goes, well, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I just made something up. It actually created a puzzle for me, and it played a few guessing games. So here's some of the applications of this. Think of this as the new babysitter, as a teacher, as a mentor. Now, my mother's 99, but up until just 2 or 3 years ago, she was using the computer. She was emailing. She was searching. She was pretty good at that.
And I'm sure she tunes into Geeks, Geezers and Googleization.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, she absolutely did. And I'm sure she'd love Odeon Capital and Dig Life. But think about that for caregiving, for people who are lonely. Now, there's the dark side of that obviously if they become attached to their computer and ChatGPT. But there's so many things. So, where does this all fit? And again, I know people are blowing it off, and this is just another chat. But you and I have been through enough trends and things. The latest was social media less than 20 years ago. But I remember when the internet and the PC first came out. And, so 40 years ago, we heard that when we went online, we heard that awful crackling sound of the computer trying to connect to something called the internet. People said, oh, be careful. It's so dangerous out there. And then all of a sudden, Mosaic, people may not even remember that name, and Netscape came along, and then AOL, and made it easier to use. And soon as it became easier to use, the internet didn't become so foreign. It became mainstream. And Chat GPT, and when we talk about artificial intelligence today, it's foreign. People don't understand what it is. It's scary. It's terrifying. But we, back 40 years ago, we heard all about the threats and dangers of the internet. Some were true, but it didn't stop it. Toothpaste was out of the tube. And then something like browsers came and opened up a whole new world of possibilities. So we're at that point. We're at that tipping point now. Whether Chat GPT in its form will be around 5 years from 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we don't know. But it gave us a glimpse into what artificial intelligence and machine learning can do to the everyday person. And it gave access to it. And it's already disrupting jobs. I mean, there are people that are, I know many companies have said, we had 2 research assistants, one left. We're not replacing them. We're now utilizing Chat GPT to help write some of the content, to market, to do some of the research. The implications are enormous. Stay tuned. Many people are saying this is only the first chapter. We're in the forward.
Ira Wolfe, thank you. And that was Ira Wolfe. He'll be back next week for more in his weekly Future Shock 2.0 segment. And of course, as I mentioned, Ira is host with Jason Cochran of the top-rated Geeks, Geezers and Googleization podcast. Speaking of which, the team of the Aidan Capital Conversations podcast on all things money and markets with Dick Bove and Matt Van Alstyne and yours truly will be doing a live seminar this coming Thursday, April the 6th at 2 p.m. titled Navigating Never Normal, Digging Deep into SVB, Recession, Jobs and AI with Aidan Capital Conversations. And it's hosted by the Geeks, Geezers and Googleization team of Ira Wolfe and Jason Cochran. And you will not want to miss this. Watch the live stream on YouTube, LinkedIn and Facebook. A must-watch event with the team from Aidan Capital Conversations. Dick Bove, he's the Chief Financial Strategist at Aidan Capital Group, and Matt Van Alstyne, Aidan co-founder and managing partner, and yours truly. Dick and Matt team up with me each week on the Aidan Capital Conversations podcast up there on Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeart Radio and more. And we've been following what's going on in the banking industry following the collapse of SVB, Silicon Valley Bank and other banks, and leading the discussions here with impeccable and thought-provoking research is, of course, Dick Bove of Aidan Capital Group, and you won't want to miss any episode of that.